Hello, welcome to my channel. This will be a used book haul that I got in the end of August. It's mostly classics. There's some few historical fiction and I have like a couple nonfiction books as well. But I will start with the classics at the oldest. Of the oldest classics, I have some from ancient Greece and then some of the Middle Ages. So the first one I have is the Iliad by Homer. This is in the Wordsworth Classic Edition. It's one of the older ones with this kind of dark teal spine. This was not the price I paid for it. I don't know actually how much I paid for it, but it was published around 800 years before the Common Era, and it has this really beautiful portrait on the cover, and it is translated not into poetry, which is okay. It's not my favorite, but it'll be good to kind of understand the story. I have not yet read this yet, or any translation of the Iliad. And I'm actually really mad. I went to a different thrift store after this one, and there was a copy of the Aeneid in a similar edition, I think, and it had a really beautiful cover as well, like a beautiful like portrait like this, but I thought that I didn't pick up the Iliad at the other thrift store, so I didn't end up getting the Aeneid, which is really shameful because it was so beautiful, but who knows, maybe it'll be there another time. But yeah, that's the Wordsworth Classic Edition. I believe these ones are from like maybe the 90s. I'll check. Yeah, 1995 this one was published in. Ooh, sorry. This one was published in 1995. I really like these. I think they're pretty well made, and I love the spine. So the next one I have is by Hesiod. This is in the older Oxford World Classics edition. So this is Theogony, I probably said that wrong, and Works in Days. But again, this is one of the older of the Greek poets. I'm excited to read this. The blurb back here says that he's quite different from Homer, and he tells us about himself and his family, which will be interesting, rather than kind of the epic poetry of Homer. But I'm excited to read this. It's quite short. So next I have from ancient Greece as well. It is The Last Days of Socrates by Plato. It's in one of these mass market paperback versions of the older Penguins, probably from the 80s or 70s or something. Yeah, 1969, so basically the 70s. I have read, I think, parts of this before, but never in full. I do enjoy a little bit of philosophy here and there, but this will be interesting as it kind of covers the trial of Socrates and his death by his trainee, Plato. So, and then we kind of move into the Middle Ages. I have the Arthurian romances by Chretien de Troyes. I'm really excited to read this. I have not read anything of the Arthurian, anything Arthurian really, but I watched the BBC show Merlin, which I believe is kind of like the same vibe, right? But with magic. But this will be interesting. I also have a class coming up this fall for university about Celtic literature under the reign of King Arthur, which will be really interesting. But I'm kind of planning to read it in that kind of same time, kind of delve into all of the Arthurianness. And then lastly, kind of the medieval kind of ancient realm. For classics, we have William Langland, Piers of Ploughman. So this is medieval poetry, I believe. Yeah. So it looks at the meaning of man's life in relation to his ultimate destiny, which will be interesting. Again, it's one of those older Penguin black spines, kind of the mass market paperback size. Usually they have like a paperback size and then the mass market size. I don't mind either, really. Yeah, this one's from the 60s, 1966. But I'm excited to read this. I haven't read too much medieval literature, so I'll be excited to dive into this. So then I think I'm going to delve into some stuff from ranging the 1500s to the 1700s. So I found this collection of John Donne's poetry. It's from the Everyman Library Pocket Poets edition. It's so beautiful. I'll show you without the dust jacket, but it's so beautiful. Look at that. So pretty. And then the spine, and there's nothing on the back, but it's so pretty. I have not read too much poetry, and the poetry I have read is kind of modern, and I didn't quite like it, but I think I'll jive more with the kind of like older poetry from the Romantics and from the Middle Ages and stuff, and epic poetry, stuff that kind of has a little bit more substance. But I'm really excited to delve into this as well, because I have my eye on a nonfiction book from the from Penn State Press. They have a nonfiction series about religion around the time of different writers, and they have one on John Donne. So I'm really excited to maybe read some of this and then pick that up and then finish up with his poetry. So next I have The Prince by Machiavelli. I've read parts of this in political philosophy classes that I've taken, but I've never read the whole thing. From what I've read, I did enjoy it, but I will be much more happy to kind of read it like from front to back. Again, it's one of those older Penguin mass market paperbacks. I have Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe. This is in the Dover Thrift editions, in the older Dover Thrift editions, which I much prefer from the new ones. I'm not actually sure when they're published. So they're published in the 90s. This one's 1994. But they're so much prettier than the newer ones. The newer ones have that like blue color, like where the picture kind of is like half of the book, and then it's dark blue like from the bottom half. But I think these are so much prettier, right? Like, this is beautiful. I actually had to scour the internet for a copy that didn't cost like $30, because I got this for $8 Canadian with shipping, so that's pretty good. I have read in part Goethe's Faust, but I've never read anything from Christopher Marlowe, so I'm excited to read this play. It's quite short, so I think that will be up on my kind of October, November TBR, because it kind of gives me autumn spooky vibes. So next I have Moliere. This is The Miser and Other Plays, so it includes The Would-Be Gentleman, The Scoundrel Scapin, The Miser, Love, The Best Doctor, and Don Juan. So again, that's that older Penguin mass market, but I've never read Moliere, but I've heard good things, so I'm excited. I've been really into plays lately. I read a couple in August. I read some in August, and I read some in July, so I'm really excited to dive into some more like classic. This one's from the 1600s, published in 1668. Next we have Daniel Defoe. This is again in that older Wordsworth classics. I think I said it was from the 90s. Yeah, 1993, 2001, early 90s, early 2000s. I really like these Wordsworth classics. I think they're so pretty, especially the spines. And I think the most of the like art they choose for the cover is also quite pretty. So this is Moll Flanders by Daniel Defoe. I have another one of his books on my shelf. I believe it's Roxana, but I have not read either. But I don't have very much in my physical TBR that's within the 1700s, so I decided to pick this up. But yeah, I don't really know much about it, and I kind of like that when it comes to classics, because then I don't get spoiled, because I tend to not like I don't know, if I already know what's going to happen, then I don't really want to pick up a book. So I'm not quite too sure what this book is about, but it does look beautiful. So then we have Voltaire and his Philosophical Dictionary. This is, again, mass market of the Penguins. This one's even older. This one probably is from the 50s. Let's see. Actually, I lied. I was way off. This is actually from the 70s, 1971. This is a series of short essays, hortatory and propagandist over an enormously wide range of subjects by Voltaire. I'm excited to read this. I really like reading philosophy, but I sometimes only have like a surface level understanding of it, which is fine. Not everybody needs to be like a philosopher like Plato or, Voltaire, Machiavelli. Like, it's fine. We can enjoy philosophy on a surface level. This one's published in 1764. So I'm excited to read it, or at least parts of it was. I don't remember why I dated it that date, but it must have been either the whole collection or the first work of the collection was published in 1764. So I'm excited to dive into this. Next, we have the Female American by Unca Eliza Winkfield. This was published in 1767, and it seems to, the back kind of describes it as a second sort of Robin Crusoe, full of wonders. It involves a shipwreck in a deserted island, which is interesting. I have not read anything like that, but it gives me good vibes. It gives me the vibe that I will enjoy it. And this one's by the Broadview Literary Texts. And then the last from the kind of 15 to 1700s, I have Tobias Somlet. Maybe that's how you pronounce it. The Expedition of Humphrey Clinker. I see on the back that there's letters and adventures and travel through England and Scotland, which will be interesting. Sounds like a good time. The cover they put on the front is a little terrifying. Like, oh gosh, a little terrifying. Anyway, so next I think I will get into my Victorian and kind of 19th century literature. And I'm going to start off with a bunch of Dickens that I found. So I was actually quite surprised because the thrift store that I got these from was packed full of classics this time. In the last couple times I've struggled to find really any, but I found 4 Charles Dickens. Wait, 4? Yeah, 4. And so the first one I have here is the Pickwick Papers. So this is the first kind of published work from Charles Dickens. I heard about it from the the Dickens versus Tolstoy debate by Caroline. I say her name out loud. When I say her name, I say it wrong every single time. But Emma and Caroline, I believe, or Carolyn, not Caroline, but they are hosting a read-along, kind of a multi-year read-along, but I never really got a copy in time. I tried ordering a brand new copy, but it was not coming to me for whatever reason, so I canceled the order. But I found this at the thrift store. It's a Signet Classic, so it's a mass market size, but the text in it is actually not too bad. But the paper, it's so old and yellow, but it smells good. Some used books smell really bad and musty, but this one smells like faint of like perfume. It's kind of nice. But I'm excited to read this. I plan on reading Dickens and Tolstoy kind of chronologically like Emma and Carolyn, but I haven't started yet. So I think I'm going to read their debate style, but just much later than when they started off. And the next of Dickens I found was The Old Curiosity Shop. And again, it's in those Wordsworth Classics edition. And I quite like them. So they're all unabridged, I believe, complete and unabridged. Yeah, I don't know too much about most of Dickens' works, but I, again, want to collect and read them all. And I love the art they chose for these ones and the Wordsworth Classics. I find that Dickens' novels don't get the best cover art usually. I know the newest Penguin Black Spines they use the art that's from the books, I believe, that's in there, but it's just black and white, so it's not, I think it could be something better, But the next one I have is Barnaby Rouge Rudge. I'm not too sure how to say it. I, in my head, always say Rouge. But this one looks really exciting. I'm, again, not sure what it's about, but look at that beautiful portrait. It reminds me that this could have probably been for like Pride and Prejudice, because this kind of reminds me of the characterization that the main characters of Pride and Prejudice usually look like. I haven't read it, but I have seen clips from the adaptation and like different cover designs for Pride and Prejudice, but I still love it. I think it looks beautiful. I'm not sure if it fits this novel, but we'll see when I get to it eventually. And then the last of the Charles Dickens I found was Our Mutual Friend. Huge. Again, they're all, the last three of those were from the Wordsworth Classics, and those like blue spined, which I quite like. I don't really like the newer Wordsworth Classics ones, like the black, but again, those are from England. You can't get the black ones in Canada now unless you order them from like Book Depository. So I think these ones from the 90s, there was a collaboration with retailers to be able to order these Wordsworth Classics and Canadian retailers, because you can no longer. So I think that's just because Canada's book market has grown to include their own publishers. So, but I'm really excited. I do like these. And I'm excited to read Our Mutual Friend. I've heard it's one of his better ones. And again, that's such a beautiful cover. The rest of the 19th century, minus Charles Dickens. First thing I have here is Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray. It's a hard name to say. So this is also in the Wordsworth Classics edition, but it's in this kind of like dusty blue color, which I'm not sure when it's published. 2001. So this must be kind of when they phased out the dark blue and I guess made them this dusty color before they went to the black. But I've heard things about Vanity Fair from Jenny from, I think her channel name is Jennifer Brooks, I think. But she also goes by the handle Drowning in History, I believe. But I've heard her talk about it and how she DNF'd it but wants to get back to it. So I think it'll be interesting. I have not really much what's about it. I think though it's what inspired Gone with the Wind, which I haven't read or seen. I feel so uncultured sometimes talking about classics. But I guess I've always had like an inkling that I want to read classics, so I kind of shut my brain off to people chattering about them because I don't want to be spoiled. But anyway, we'll see. If I like this, I think I might get a different edition of this because I don't really quite like the cover. The spine, and I don't really like the spine either. It's kind of weird looking. Like, what is that? Next, I have Alexandre Dumas, the Vicomte de Bragelonne. I'm not sure. My French pronunciation is quite poor for being a Canadian who took French immersion classes up until the 9th grade. But this is the beginning of one of his series that includes Louis de la Verrière and the Man in the Iron Mask. I own the Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas in the newer Oxford World Classics. But I DNF'd it because I felt too far behind in a read-along, and so I decided to DNF it. But I fully intend to come back to it. I think it will be one of my favorites. Seems like it's everybody's favorite, so I can't be the exception to the rule. So I'm excited to read this as well because I want to expand my French literature knowledge as well. Then we move into England, I believe, or at least the United Kingdom. We have Anthony Trollope, the American Senator, in the newer Oxford World Classics edition. I have not read any Anthony Trollope. I don't think I've read literally any author that I've gotten in this haul, but I've heard good things I'm not too sure if this is part of a series because I do know that he has a couple series and standalones, but I am excited to give him a go. If this is part of a series, I think I'll grab the first book in it before I start, obviously, this one. But I'll have to look that up. I'm not too sure. So next I have Friedrich Knight. I can't say his name, and that's a shame because I studied German, so I thought I would be able to pronounce his name better. Friedrich Knight. I don't even think he's German, but I think it's a German type of name. But anyway, this is a work kind of a philosophy. It's about the history of ethics and their interpretations. And I don't believe I said it, but it's the genealogy of morals. And it's translated by Douglas Smith. And again, it's in the older Oxford World Classics, but it's quite short, so I'm excited to read it. And the artwork they chose for it's very beautiful. I was going to get this in the newer Oxford World Classics edition because it did use the same artwork. And the newer ones usually have a better resolution of them, but it's still beautiful, and you can't beat it when you get them for like less than $3, which is a steal in Canada at a secondhand bookstore, at least where I live, because I don't have very many near me other than like Value Village, which is like a chain, which is where I got all these. And the last of the 19th century or 1800s, sorry, something in my eye. I have by Mark Twain, A Kinetic Yankee in King Arthur's Court. I'm not too sure about this one. I believe it's supposed to be more comedic than some Arthurian inspired works, but I'm still excited to read it nonetheless. I have some Mark Twain, but I believe I just have Huckleberry Finn on my shelves. So I'm excited to read this because I think it'll be a little bit off the beaten path from his popular works, like of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. That's hard to say. I think I'm going to go into my 20th century literature that I got. So the first one I have is, The Longest Journey by E.M. Forster. I have heard really great things about E.M. Forster, but I've never read anything from him myself, so I'm excited to give him a go. I have 2 books here from him. I've been on a kick for literature published right in that really early, like right before 1910, 1912, like right before World War I. Those literatures have been really gripping me lately, so I'm not too sure when I'll read this. I'll have to get a better vibe from it, see when I want to read it. And then I have Howard's End by Forster. It's in that mass market paperback size from Penguin. Again, I don't know much about this, but I'm excited to read some Forster. And then I have my favorite book of all time, The Great Gatsby. I think this is my 5th copy of it. I'm not too sure, but I really, really, really wanted a cover of the this blue. I think this is the cover I read when I read it for the first time in high school, I think. But it's just gripped me, that beautiful, those eyes, they like see into my soul. But The Great Gatsby is my favorite book of all time. I have a deep, 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 deep place in my heart for the 1920s. I think it's just such a magical era, despite its faults. And then the last of this time period, we have The Lord of the Flies by William Golding. I've read this in high school, as most Canadian high school students have, and probably American and British. But I quite enjoyed it, actually. I liked the symbolism that was in Lord of the Flies. I liked the story as well, even though apparently it's not actually very accurate to what would happen if boys were stranded on an island. This actually did happen, where a group of boys got stranded on an island after a plane crash, and apparently the events that they went through was nothing like what Golding had written about, but that's just what he theorized would happen, obviously, so we can't fault him for that. But that's actually really interesting. I believe there's an article, I think if you Google what Golding got wrong, I think that's kind of what the article headline is, but there's an article that you can read if you're interested about what happened to a group of boys who actually did get stranded after a plane crash. I'm going to go on to Russian literature that I picked up, which is awesome because I usually don't find any Russian literature. I find sometimes that there's a lot of like historical nonfiction about like the Russian Revolution, the USSR, and even sometimes the Tsarist periods, but there's rarely ever any like literature from this period that I find at my thrift stores. So I got really excited. Four different books of Russian literature, which will, sorry, I have one other Tolstoy on my shelves. I have the Kreutzer Sonata, but other than that, I don't really have much Russian literature on my shelves, which is a shame, but it's kind of intimidating because I've heard so much great things about Russian authors, so I don't want to like ruin it for me. But anyway, the first one I have here is the Word Number 6 and Other Stories by Anton Chekhov. This is the Constant Garnett translation. I've heard really great things about Anton Chekhov. I've heard not so great things about Constant Garnett's translation, but I think it'll be fine for me. I don't think I get too hung up on translation as long as like the point is there. I do enjoy prose and beautiful language, but anyway, this is in the I lied. This is in the Barnes & Noble's Classics edition, which is crazy to me because I have no clue where the person who originally had this got this from, because I don't even know how you would get these in Canada unless you went to the United States, bought it at a Barnes & Noble, and then came back with it. Or if there's some way to order Barnes & Noble from their website and ship it to Canada, but I don't believe there is because we have basically a Canadian version of it called Indigo and Chapters. So I don't know. I'm excited to read this. And I got this from Value Village, but surprisingly, the person who bought it before me bought it at a different Value Village than I bought it from. And so they bought it from the Value Village and then returned it to a different one. That's crazy. Wow. That's interesting. Long tangent up, but I'm excited to read Anton Chekhov. Then I have Leo Tolstoy, a Calendar of Wisdom. This is the first English translation by Peter Sekerin. I don't know, I haven't heard anything about his translation, but I'm excited to read this. It is like every day has its own page, and it has little bits of wisdom from different philosophers, religious figures, Tolstoy, authors, and stuff like that. I'm really excited. I'm glad I found this because I've wanted to read this, but the copy you can get now new, I don't really like the cover as much, and I love this cover. I love illuminations and like this medieval way of painting religious figures with like the halo. I think it's so beautiful. I'm excited for that one. And then I found War and Peace by Tolstoy, and it's in the Wordsworth Classics edition, the ones from the 90s in that dark teal spine. I have not read this, obviously, because it's huge, but I do know that it's about the Napoleonic Wars and like the Russian perspective of that, and I'm really excited to read it eventually. I think I might try and get to it next year in 2022, but this is complete and unabridged, which is really exciting. And I think War and Peace will probably be one of those books, despite if I love it, I think I'm going to collect different editions of it because it's just like so many different beautiful artwork, and there's many different translations too, so I would be interested to read different translations to see if it actually does make a difference. This is the Maud translation, which I've heard is the best, but I'd still be interested to read the Constant Garnett one to see. I think I'm interested to maybe read the Maud first and then read the Constance and then kind of see what people's hubbub is all about, but with Constant Garnett's translations. But this is really beautiful. It has a portrait of Napoleon on the front, which is really beautiful. I'm excited to read this. I think it will take me quite a long time. I know that the read-along read it in 2 months, but I think it's going to take me at least 4 because that's huge. But I am excited nonetheless for this. And the last of my Russian literature I got was Boris Pasternak, Dr. Zhivago. And I don't know much about this, but I do know that it was not able to be published in the USSR when it came out in 1957, because it was not deemed suitable for the readers of the USSR because it criticizes aspects of that era. So I think it was, I believe it was unable to be published in Russia, so then it got published in Italy. But I'm excited to read it. I love that kind of era of time. I love the early USSR, kind of before the 80s. I think it's really interesting. And I think there's so much that is able to be learned, especially in such a short amount of history. So I'm excited to pick this up. It's not the cover I would have liked. I liked the new Centennial edition, I think, or like the Penguin Deluxe Classics, I believe it is, but this one's pretty. If I like it, I might get a new, I might get a different copy, but this will be fine for now. I'm not actually sure what, Harville, an imprint of Harper's Collins Publishing. Looks like someone got this in the 90s, 1996. This book's pretty old. And it's translated by Max Hayward and Mania Harari. So I don't know anything about their translations, but I'm interested to give this a go. But that was my book haul. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have any thoughts about anything that I have hauled, let me know. Spoiler free, please, because I haven't read anything from here, but I'm excited to read some stuff. And I hope you all are having happy reading and that you are staying safe. Goodbye.